Thank you for viewing this presentation and learning about OSHA's fall protection policies for residential construction. This presentation will explain recent changes in our residential construction fall protection policy and tell you about the requirements employers must meet to protect their workers. It is also designed to share procedures and equipment in use today to meet the challenges of protecting residential construction workers who perform work 6 feet or more above lower levels. Last December, OSHA rescinded an old policy directive that allowed residential construction employers to follow alternative fall protection methods instead of using conventional fall protection like safety nets, personal fall arrest, or guardrail systems. No worker should have to pay with their life trying to make a living. Our hope is that we can work together to prevent falls and to save lives. I hope you will gain useful information from this presentation. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's Residential Fall Protection Program Update. My name is Damon Bono, and I am a Safety and Health Specialist in OSHA's Directorate of Construction, Office of Construction Services, and I will be your facilitator for today's presentation. This presentation is designed solely to provide information about OSHA's policy changes in OSHA's Residential Construction Fall Protection Enforcement Policy. This presentation in itself is not a standard or regulation, and it does not create new legal obligations, nor alter existing obligations established by OSHA standards or the Occupational Safety and Health Act. The examples of fall protection shown in the photographs contained in this presentations do not represent all possible work methods that can be used in residential construction. Moreover, employees should be aware that the examples of fall protection shown in the photographs contained in this presentation may not be suitable in all situations. Employers are responsible for ensuring compliance with applicable OSHA requirements. On December 16, 2010, OSHA rescinded Policy Directive STD 03-00001, the plain language revision of OSHA Instruction STD 3.1, Interim Fall Protection Compliance Guidance for Residential Construction, dated June 18, 1999. The old guidance, which allowed employers engaged in certain residential construction activities to use specified alternative methods of fall protection, was replaced by STD 03-11-002, Compliance Guidance for Residential Construction. The agency is also reviewing all letters of interpretation that reference the Council Directive and will either revise or withdraw them as needed. Enforcement of the new directive will begin on June 16, 2011. OSHA and state compliance safety and health officers have attended training such as this one to help ensure consistency in enforcement throughout the country. So why did OSHA rescind the old directive? Well, the truth is, it hasn't been working that well. Statistics still show that fatalities from falls are consistently high for residential construction activities, and the agency never intended for the old directive to be a permanent policy. All along, OSHA stated that the guidance would remain in effect until further notice or until completion of a new formal rulemaking effort. And since that time, there have been significant advancement in the types and capability of commercially available fall protection equipment available for use in residential construction. This slide shows where the majority of the fatalities have occurred in the construction industry. And as you can see, falls accounted for more deaths than any of the other areas. Falls accounted for 34% of the construction fatalities in 2008 and 2009, and 35% of the fatalities since 2005. We can and we must reverse this undesirable trend. Workers should not have to pay with their lives trying to make a living, especially when we know that the means to protect them are readily available. Here's what the residential falls fatality picture looked like during that same period. Residential falls accounted for roughly 29% of all construction fall fatalities, and falls from roofs accounted for nearly 35% of those. Basically, the new directive simply states that all employers must protect their workers who are engaged in residential construction 6 feet or more above lower levels by conventional fall protection systems. That's guardrail systems, safety net system, or a personal fall arrest system, or by other fall protection measures allowed under 1926 501B for particular types of work. Gone are the special alternative procedures allowed under the old directive for certain residential construction activities. Slide guards or safety monitors were allowed in lieu of conventional fall protection without first demonstrating infeasibility or the creation of a greater hazard. The new directive has not outlawed the use of slide guards or safety monitors. Now employers must first demonstrate that it is infeasible to comply with the provisions of the standard or that it creates a greater hazard. Then they can use those systems as part of a written, site-specific fall protection plan that meets the requirements of 1926 502K. More simply put, all employers performing residential construction must now comply with 29 CFR 1926 501B13. Here are some of the other fall protection measures allowed under 1926 501B for particular types of work. If an employer can use one of these methods for the specified process, they can do so without developing a site-specific fall protection plan. The agency has never been convinced that there are significant safety or feasibility problems with the use of conventional fall protection equipment for the vast majority of residential construction activities. But we also acknowledge that there may be isolated situations where it may be infeasible or create a greater hazard to use conventional fall protection in residential construction. We believe that the standard provides sufficient flexibility to accommodate employees in those rare situations. The new directive also provides an interpretation for the term residential construction. In order to be classified as residential, 2 important elements must be met. First, the end use of the structure being built must be as a home or a dwelling. And second, the structure must be constructed using traditional wood frame construction material and methods. The limited use of steel I-beams to help support wood framing does not disqualify a structure from being considered residential construction. Homes built using cold-formed or light-gauge steel metal studs will be considered within the bounds of traditional wood frame construction material and methods. Homes built with masonry brick or block exterior walls will also be considered to meet the residential construction definition. However, construction activities that involve the use of precast concrete or steel I-beams beyond the typical use to support wood framing will not normally qualify as residential construction. Training is an important component of any fall protection program. The workers who actually wear and use the equipment must be thoroughly trained. Employers must train their workers how to recognize and avoid unsafe conditions. Workers must also know the requirements of the standards and the regulations that are applicable to their job. Training plans must also include procedures for conducting retraining to correct less than satisfactory fall protection performance by workers. All training must be documented, and the most current certification must be available on site. Now we'll take a look at the conventional fall protection systems and some examples of them being used in residential construction. First, we'll look at guardrail systems as defined by 1926 502B. Guardrail systems are designed to prevent workers from falling. Once properly installed, guardrails are sometimes referred to as passive fall protection. That means it requires no action by the worker to be safe as long as the system is properly maintained. And remember, Whenever there's a possibility for objects to fall on workers below, you must install toe boards. Here we see a second floor perimeter completely protected by a guardrail system. And from this angle, we can see a prefabricated wall panel in position to be installed from within a fully protected area. The potential for a fall to the exterior in this instance has been eliminated. The ability to be either side-mounted or deck-mounted allows flexibility to employers when using the engineered guardrail systems we've just observed. Either way, consult the manufacturer's instruction or a registered professional engineer to ensure proper installation. In this slide, we see re-roofing activities being performed behind guardrails. The picture on the right lacks protection on the rake edge, so another means of protecting this worker, either safety nets or a personal fall arrest system, must be used. Here are guardrails that were either positioned prior to or after sheathing and left in place for the follow-along trades to do their jobs. Proper coordination can lead to one system serving the needs of several trades. Next, we'll take a look at safety nets. Although not frequently used in residential construction, safety nets are another means of arresting falls. These systems also fall under that passive system umbrella because when they are properly installed and maintained, the workers do not have to do anything with the systems to be safe. Installation, adjustments, and maintenance of the netting should only be made by properly trained personnel. However, when safety nets are used, they must be positioned as close as practicable under the surface on which employees are working, installed with sufficient clearance under them to prevent contact with the surface or structures below, and be drop tested or certified. This chart shows the vertical and horizontal characteristics of nettings if used. This slide shows safety nets in place and positions to prevent a worker from contacting the lower surface. Lastly, we'll take a look at what may be the most widely used form of fall protection used in residential construction: personal fall arrest systems. A personal fall arrest system must be designed so an employee cannot free fall more than 6 feet or contact any lower levels, bring an employee to a complete stop in 3.5 feet, and have sufficient strength to withstand twice the potential impact energy of an employee free falling a distance of 6 feet or less. There are 3 primary components to a personal fall arrest system. We have the anchorage point, the body harness, and the connector or lanyard. These 3 components are commonly referred to as the ABCs of fall protection. We'll take a detailed look at each of these components. Proper installation of the anchorage point is critical to the success of this system. It must be designed and installed to support the amount of force that would be applied to it if a worker fell. Consulting the manufacturer instructions or a registered professional engineer will ensure this critical component is properly installed and maintained. Here are examples of various anchorage devices. All anchorage points must be capable of supporting at least 5,000 pounds or be designed and used under the supervision of a qualified person and maintain a safety factor of at least 2. Next, the full body harness. Here we see personal fall arrest systems in use during roofing and re-roofing operations. A full body harness is designed to minimize the impact on the body during the fall by distributing the force of the fall over the entire torso. And remember, body belts have not been allowed as part of an arrest system since 1998. They can still be used as part of a fall restraint system, and we'll cover them a little later in the presentation. Workers must be trained in the proper wear and use of the body harness. They are not a one-size-fits-all component, so proper sizing is critical to preventing injuries. The harness must fit snugly across the chest and around the thighs, and the D-ring must be positioned in the center of the back between the shoulder blades. Employers must ensure workers use a size that fits them properly. Which one of these workers is wearing the harness correctly? The one on the left or the one on the right? The worker on the right is the correct answer. Now for the device that ties the anchorage and the body harness together, the connector or lanyard. D-rings and snap hooks shall have a minimum breaking strength of 5,000 pounds. Snap hooks must be size compatible with the connection point to prevent unintentional disengagement or shall be a locking type snap hook. Unless the snap hook is a locking type and designed for the following connections, snap hooks shall not be engaged directly to webbing, rope, or wire rope, to each other, to a D-ring to which another snap hook or other connector is attached, to a horizontal lifeline, or to any object which is incompatibly shaped or dimensioned in relation to the snap hook that could depress the snap hook keeper and release it. Lanyards should have a minimum breaking strength of 5,000 pounds. Self-retracting lifelines and lanyards, which automatically limit free fall distance to 2 feet or less, shall be capable of sustaining a minimum load of 3,000 pounds in the fully extended position. Self-retracting lifelines and lanyards, which do not limit free fall distance to 2 feet or less, rip-stitch lanyards, and tearing and deforming lanyards shall be capable of sustaining a minimum load of 5,000 pounds in the fully extended positions. Ropes and straps used in lanyard lifelines and strength components of body belts and body harnesses shall be made from synthetic fiber. Although the standard does not mention personal fall restraint system, OSHA has previously stated that it accepts a properly utilized fall restraint system in lieu of personal fall arrest system when the restraint system is rigged so that the worker cannot get to the fall hazard. Personal fall restraint is used mainly for edge work. It can sometimes be difficult to keep the proper slack and is not used for most residential roofing work. Fall restraints can be a body belt or a full body harness. It must be designed so that the worker cannot go past the leading edge, no matter where the work is being done, and the system should be adjustable to take up slack when workers move around to perform their jobs. Now we'll take a look at some of the other systems and processes that some contractors are using throughout the country to meet the fall protection challenges in residential construction. Now, we all know that the first principle of mishap prevention is to eliminate the hazard whenever possible. If you cannot eliminate it, you have to minimize its effect. We cannot eliminate working at heights in construction, but using ladders, scaffolds, and aerial lifts can help employers eliminate some falls from 6 feet or higher. Platform ladders are becoming more and more prevalent in the industry. These industry best practices provide workers with a stable work base and allow more flexibility while maneuvering and positioning things like floor joists and trusses. These scaffold systems are primarily used on the interior of buildings and can provide stable work platforms while framing, hanging board, and rolling trusses. Here are examples of wall brackets or top plate scaffold systems. Some contractors are using these systems for rolling trusses and cutting rafter tails. The positioning of this guardrail system allows easy access for sheathing, roofing, and utility installation. Here we see a building completely enclosed with a scaffold system. Falls to the exterior have been eliminated entirely. Pump jacks are another popular system used by many contractors to install building wrap and siding. Some contractors have used different variations of the pump jack that allow them to jack it up to just under the fascia and to be used as catch platforms. There, the system can be used as perimeter protection while sheathing and roofing operations are performed. An aerial lift is a good alternative for reaching heights if properly used. They can also be used to install and remove guardrail and safety net systems. A personal fall arrest system or fall restraint must be worn with the lanyard attached to the anchor point provided by the manufacturer. Here's a properly installed guardrail using a safety boot system to position the uprights installed during framing. Here is the same system still in place through mechanical, electrical, and plumbing installation and drywall. Priming and painting can be done before installing a permanent handrail and removal of the guardrail. As we stated previously, working at heights cannot be eliminated, but there are ways to minimize exposure. By assembling as many parts of the structure as possible on the ground, we can reduce workers' frequency and duration of exposure to falls. Properly assembled and braced systems that are erected in accordance with the Building Component Safety Information Booklet can be hoisted and flown into place. This minimizes worker exposure to fall hazards. Do as many things on the ground as possible. Here, a contractor has installed the building wrap prior to lifting a section into place. And here, another contractor has pre-positioned portion of the guardrail system on the ground and flown into place. What a concept. Today, there's no reason for this worker to work like this, when there are systems available to prevent them from falling and hitting the ground. Falling from roofs is not the only area where fatalities have occurred. Open sides like this must be protected. Like this. And this open-sided stairwell opening must be protected. Like this. Hopefully, we've shared several ways workers can be protected while exposed to potential fall hazards. But if an employer can still demonstrate that using conventional fall protection is infeasible or presents a greater hazard to their employees, they must develop and implement a fall protection plan. Employers bear the burden of proving that a fall protection plan is needed for a particular workplace situation. Employers must ensure the plan meets the requirements of 29 CFR 1926-501B13 and 1926-502K. Under 1926-502K, the plan must be written and be site-specific. A plan developed for repetitive use with a particular style home must be reviewed to ensure it fully addresses all issues related to fall protection on each site it is used on. The plan must be prepared by a qualified person. Now, this could be the owner, supervisor, or worker, as long as they possess the knowledge, training, and experience, and have successfully demonstrated the ability to solve or resolve problems relating to fall protection. And all changes to the plan must be approved by the qualified person. The plan must be maintained on site and be implemented under the supervision of a competent person. A competent person means a person who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazard and has the authority to take action to eliminate them. The plan must also document why conventional systems are infeasible or create greater hazard, and it must include a written discussion of the alternative work practices that will eliminate or reduce the possibility of a fall. All locations where conventional systems cannot be used must be identified in the plan and be designated in the plan as controlled access zones. All workers authorized to work in the controlled access zone must be identified, and the plan must be reviewed and updated if a fall or near miss occurs. The safety monitor's sole purpose is to monitor the workers who are exposed to a potential fall hazard. The safety monitor must be a competent person, cannot have any other job which would distract them from monitoring, must be on the same working level as the workers, must have the authority to stop other workers' activities, and all workers in the controlled access zone must be directed to comply with the fall hazard warnings of the safety monitor. OSHA included Appendix E in Subpart M to show employers and employees what a compliant fall protection plan might look like. In closing, we believe that in most cases it is feasible and will not create a greater hazard to implement conventional fall protection systems for residential construction work. There have been considerable advancements in the type and capability of commercially available fall protection equipment. We cannot let workers get killed when effective means are readily available to prevent those deaths. The new directive will help us get there. Companies that had been operating in accordance with the old directive have until June 16, 2011 to come into compliance with 1926 501b13 as written. All workers have a right to return home safely to their families every day. Thank you, and please contact your local OSHA office if you have any questions. You can also contact your state on-site consultation program office for assistance. These professionals can come out to your job site and provide free consultation services. And lastly, you can also contact us directly by using one of the methods shown on this slide. Again, thank you and be safe.